Let me take over. Share the screen. Got it.
All right. There you go.
Right. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome, welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can have my presentation up, and we've been practicing all morning. So Iris gets this right and has it up. Okay. All right. And this is going to be a very interactive process today. I'm just so glad to have everybody here, and I'm so excited, and I want to make sure I can see everything. And Amber, you're going to help me with what's going on in the chat, because I can't see that on my screen right there. I could just see my presentation, but I just want to make sure I'm going to be engaging with everyone. So the session I'm doing today is on being your authentic self as a BIPOC professional. It's a really powerful topic, a really powerful title to this presentation. And Amber can tell you, I show up like this all the time. This is me. This is who I am, Iris Drayton-Spann. And I'm a director here at Stanton Chase. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into this. And I'm just so glad everybody's here. I always like to have an agenda for folks who have to have structure. I understand that when folks come into different events that you have, and especially virtual. Going to do a welcome and introduction. We're going to talk about level setting, definitions, and meanings to get us started. What does it mean to be authentic? We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to let go of code switching so we can free our minds. We're going to talk about that a little bit during this hour we are together. We're going to set some boundaries and understand how to set boundaries so you can flourish. We're going to be listening to our inner voice so we understand all of this that's going on around us and how we're going to react to things and how we're going to do things differently. And it's going to be okay with moving on. And we're going to talk about that a lot, about moving on and being okay with moving on. So as part of this interactive session we're going to have, I'm going to do some polls. You're going to be able to drop stuff in the chat. I'm going to be asking you some questions and some information as we're going along, because I want to hear what you have to say, hear your experience. We're going to share with each other. And I think that's going to make a big difference here in our session today. So your mental health is everything. Last but not least, we're going to make sure we touch that topic as well, because we want to make sure we're covering the whole person here when we're talking about being authentic and showing up as a BIPOC professional where you are. So this is me. This is Iris Drayton-Spann. I'm a director at Stanton Chase. I'm a former vice president of HR and chief diversity officer at WETA TV. I was the very first chief diversity officer they ever had there. I'm a board member. I'm a mentor. I'm an executive coach. I'm a networker. My friends and my family say I came out of the womb connecting the doctors and nurses. When I came out, I love networking people. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm an aunt. I'm a friend. And I'm a godmother to a lot of children. A few other things about me. I'm a sci-fi fan, poetry writer. I'm a book lover. I'm a purse connoisseur, and I'm very proud of that. And I know I have a problem, but I love it. I'm a travel enthusiast, and I authentically live me, and I live me purposefully. So the first thing we want to do here, you heard my Coming to the Stage song, which was Just Fine by Mary J. Blige. I want everybody who's in the room today, I want you to drop into the room your first name, where you're logging in from, like your city, and I want you to put in there, what is your Coming to the Stage song? That song that gets you just excited and smiling and happy every time you hear it. For me, it's Just Fine by Mary J. Blige, and I'm a big fan of hers, have been around her for years. People in my family think she's a member of the family because I call her my cousin, because I just love her music. I love her lyrics. I love how she shared who she is. She is authentically Mary. No matter when you see her, no matter what she's going through in her life, she's in a very public setting as a music person, as an artist, as an actress. And a lot of her business has been out in the public, but she's always stayed true to who she was, no matter what was going on, no matter what was happening. So if you don't mind, just putting in the chat, you can just put your first name, or you could just put where you're calling from and calling in from and listening from and viewing from. But also I want you to put in, what is that Coming to the Stage song for you? And Amber knows for me, I had to choose between Mary J. Blige and Earth, Wind & Fire, because I'm a big Earth, Wind & Fire fan all day, every day. everything they've ever made. I love the old stuff from the latest stuff they had. I love everything, but I had to choose my Coming to the Stage song. And this is important. We need that thing that makes us feel good when we hear it, that brings us and centers us and makes us just go to a whole nother space when we hear it. So for me, it's Mary J. Blige with Just Fine. That is mine. That is fine. I'm just looking at some of the chat. Oh, Jesus, be a fence around me. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Aretha Franklin. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. I'm hearing that. In Chicago, we have all kind of people here with us. Thank you all for sharing. Guy, oh my goodness. All right now. I remember that. Thank you so much, Laura. It's Laura, and I don't want to mispronounce her name. If I did, my apologies. Thank you all for dropping those wonderful things in the chat. Got Atlanta, Georgia. Work It Out by Tucker. Oh my goodness. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Thank you all so much for doing all the sharing and for just sharing who you are. Don't get Patty LaBelle up in here now. We're gonna start throwing some shoes. Don't get Patty. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's get this started. I always like to do a level set with things. Hold on. Here we go. And definitions are important. So I want us all to be on the same page when we're talking about BIPOC. So I said, let me pull a little bit of information on James E. Wright with a definition of BIPOC. I'm not going to read all the way through this. I want you all to read it. And just so you can see where we are and center us, so we know when we say BIPOC during this session, this is what we're referring to: Black, Indigenous, people of color. And all of the information that's here in front of you. And I just wanted to make sure we started off all level set with a definition and a meaning, so we all know what we're talking about here today and Iris is referring to when we talk about BIPOC. And I just think it's important. Words are important, language is important, and definitions are important. And I know when it comes to me, when I'm defining who I am, I really like to do a level set so people know who I am and how I show up. So when I use this term, I want all of us to be in the same space today together virtually here. And Amber knows I'm moving my hands all around. I'm one of those hand movers. I get a lot of energy and excitement from people. So all throughout, my hands are everywhere. So I'm trying to keep them from being in front of the camera so they don't block my face. So what we're going to do now, and just give it another minute so people can just go through this definition, meaning, understanding. We're going to do the first quick poll, and we're going to just put this in the chat. In the chat, you can just put, you don't have to participate. You can if you want to, but are you the only BIPOC person in your team, department, or role at your company? Yes, no, or you don't know. And I'll give us all a couple of seconds to go through this. And I'm going to look at the chat. And again, you can answer if you want to. If you don't, that's fine as well. That's fine as well. It's just good to know where we all are right now in our organizations. Whether we are the only ones or there's other people. Because community is important. Community is important. Important to know. And I'm seeing a lot of no, you're not the only BIPOC in your team or department at your organization. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for doing that quick poll with me. But we're going to talk a little bit about community as we're going through this. And community can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But where I'm coming from with community right now is when you're at your place of work, on your team or your role in your organization, when you're looking at being the BIPOC person. Sometimes it can feel lonely. You feel by yourself. You feel like there's no one I can talk to, no one I can relate to. I'm going to have to be like everybody else around me. So that's when I keep mentioning community, that's what I'm talking about. We're going to talk about that throughout this session. So thanks everyone that chimed in on that quick poll. Let me go back here. So what does it mean to be authentic? And I thought about this a lot, and I did go and do a little bit of research and found a few things in a few places. Google's my best friend. So here's something that I really like that I found. Authenticity is about trustworthiness and being honest. Some people, it's real and genuine, and it's the opposite of not fake. And that really spoke to me. That stood out to me when I saw this about what authenticity brings to mind. So when you're talking about how you're going to show up, who you're going to be, what is it going to look like for you in the workplace? And especially now, so many organizations are asking everybody, show up and be your authentic self. Be your authentic self. That's easier said than done. And, you know, throughout this whole session we're going to have today, I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm a realist. I talk from my space and my place, from my experiences, and I'm hoping my experiences I can share with others, and we can share with each other as we're going through this. And it is hard to bring your authentic self to work because sometimes you don't feel like you can. So, you know, that's a big part of showing up as your authentic self. How can I be my authentic self? I don't even know if I can where I'm at in my team and my work. One of the things I like to remind people, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Oscar Wilde. Everybody else is already taken. You are you. You are your unique self. There is nobody else like you. So make sure you keep saying that to yourself. There's nobody else like me. I'm going to be myself, and being myself is going to make me comfortable with who I am, and being able to show up where I want to show up, and being able to contribute, being able to speak up, speak out, feeling as though I am part of this organization, but I'm my unique self, because you bring something that nobody else can bring when you're at your organization. They hired you for your knowledge, skills, and ability, but that innate thing, which is you, your authenticity, you bring that. Nobody else is like you. And you should not have to push it down, diminish it, hide it. You can be successful being your authentic self at your organization. I know every organization I've ever been a part of, this is me. This is the iris everyone gets, from the first person I see, the receptionist, to the president of the organization. They all get me all the time. Let me jump to my next slide here. So this is a great quote that I saw by Henna, and it's you got to read this book, Wired for Authenticity. It's really, really great. Being true to ourselves is about having the courage to define our own version of what it is to live a successful life. So just absorb that, and look at that. Because that is a strong statement that she made, and her book is just wonderful, and I love it, and I highly recommend it. You can get it on Audible. If you don't want to get a hard copy, you can listen to it on Audible. But being true to ourselves is about having the courage to define our own version of what it is to live a successful life. If you want to drop in the chat, you can do that too. I like a lot of conversation back and forth in the chat. If you want to talk about being your authentic self, what does authenticity mean to you? And if you want to drop a definition in the chat, you can do that. Please feel free to do that if you want to drop a definition in the chat. I want to talk a little bit now about code switching. I am going to pull up the chat and read that as well, so we can talk about that a little bit too. So I see in the chat, not limiting how we choose to show up. That is great. That is great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Not limiting how we choose to show up. That's powerful. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing. I really, really like that. I like that. And thank you, Amber. I know you'll be helping me with the chat as we're going through this. And I want to make sure I'm keeping everyone engaged and having them to share with others, because we're going to learn from each other. It's not just Iris talking and giving some information. We're going to learn from each other through this. So here's a really, really interesting topic, code switching. And me and a lot of my female friends, we always talk about this. And we've talked about it at dinners, at brunches. We've talked about it in virtual sessions together, and the whole code switching and what that is and what that means. And how do you work through this? How do you work through this code switching that so many of us have to do, and we feel as though we have to do when we're in our workplace, when we're in teams. And for me, it took me a long time to realize, was I doing this? Was I doing this whole code switching thing when I showed up at work? And at one point in my career, before I became a vice president at my organization, I was like, am I doing this? And I did a lot of self-reflection on it, because I always wanted to be that person, and I still am, that didn't have to change how I talked or what I looked like or how I interacted when I was in a room with different people that weren't like me. And I did a lot of self-reflection on that. I do a lot of journaling, and I do highly recommend that as well. So when you're talking about code switching, let's talk about code switching here. Code switching is the ways which a member of an underrepresented group, consciously or unconsciously, you adjust your language, your syntax, your grammatical structure, your behavior, and your appearance to fit into the dominant culture. Now, if you want to share, you can share in the chat if you've ever done this. If you want to, you can share that in the chat if you've done the code switching. And I think for a lot of us, especially in our workplaces, we feel as though if we don't try to fit in with the dominant culture, we won't move up, we won't be promoted, we won't be heard, we won't be seen. And I don't think that is true. I don't think we have to continue to do that. I think that's what the message is I want to try to convey today. We don't have to do that. I mean, this is a very powerful word and language that's out there. And I know a lot of people experience this and have to do it and feel like they have to do it. But I challenge everyone, what will happen if you don't do it? What will happen if you don't change and adjust your language? You don't change and change your behavior. You don't change your appearance. So I'm going to share, and I like to share when I'm in sessions like this. So from when I was really young, a young lady, and growing up, my family and I'm the oldest, and I have younger sisters. And my mother, we had very, very long hair, like shoulder length down to past the shoulders hair. I've always had really, really long hair. Always. I rapped a lot about who I was around my hair because that's how I was raised in my culture and my family. Hair was a big thing. It was a big thing, and to grow long, luxurious hair was a thing. And I love it. I love it. I'm not being negative about it or anything. However, for me in my personal journey, I had to let go of it. It was holding me back. It was holding me back because it became this extra thing I carried around with me. Now, again, I'm talking my experience. I'm not negative to anyone. I love beautiful long hair, but from Iris's perspective, what Iris had to do is I had to change it. I had to change it. And it was a dramatic thing for me to do. And it was dramatic in my family to see me from being, and I could put up my driver's license, my old driver's license, where I had this bang and this long, long hair for most of my life. And when the pandemic hit, I cut it all off. I literally cut it all off. My husband, I talked to him about it, so it wouldn't be some big dramatic thing with him when he saw me do this. And we had a conversation about it, and he was fine. He said, "You do what makes you happy. I don't care." I was like, "Okay, cool." When I went to my hairstylist would not cut my hair off until she called and talked to my husband. And I'm like, "Why on God's green earth are you doing that? This is my head. It's my hair. I'm doing what I want to do." And she said, "Iris, I've done this before, and I've had husbands and significant others and partners call me and be mad at me and angry because they couldn't believe I did it." So she called, talked to my husband. We laughed it off. But that was really interesting to me because I was like, wow, this thing that I did, this big change, how people took it. My father, who's 84, was angry at me. My father's Southern, very, very old school. He was angry at me. So we had to have a conversation about it. And I just had to learn more and more about why is this bothering him. And, and he told me, and he was like, that's just the way I look at you being a woman, is your hair. So we had a deep conversation about it. Just me and my father had to have a conversation about this. So it doesn't matter really, even if you're just at work or outside of work, family and friends and interactions, different things that you do to fit in and to look the part. And when you change it and you do something different, how people are going to react. But I just put that out there. Depending on where you are and who you are, it takes courage. I see someone put that in there. I'm looking at the chat. It takes courage and vulnerability not to code switch. It does. It takes a lot, but I'm here to tell you, you do have support. You do have others. You do have resources. You do have different things you can do so that you don't have to keep doing the code switching. And I see what you put in there, Nancy. It depends on the environment and the encounter and interaction of who's in the room. But this isn't going to happen overnight. This takes time to let go of the code switching. And thanks everybody for sharing and putting things in the chat. So letting go of the code switching, I'm just going to talk a little bit about that, letting go of the code switching. And it depends on where you are, what the setting is, and understanding, why you even have to do it. If you think it's part of your professional uniform, that you have to appear a certain way and do things a certain way. And clothes are things we put on and we can also take off. And that's one of the things from Better Up, when I saw this on Better Up, and I always go to resources that are wellness and support wellness and mental health. And that's why I go to Better Up and I use them as a resource. When they put about the clothing that you've chosen, that's a powerful thing, because clothes are things you can put on, and they're also things you can put off and you can change. So I like to have this as part of our conversation today about the letting go of the code switching. And I think, just like clothing, you're going to have to learn to put on things that are comfortable with you. And you're going to have to be okay with letting go of that, because it is draining. Code switching is draining. Everyone in my sister friend circle and brother friend circle that I talked to about this, literally the thing that I kept hearing over and over and over again from so many people is how tired they are of doing it, because it can weigh down on your mental health, your mental wellness, on who you are as a person. And I know it's difficult and hard, and you can start with slow steps to change that. But we want to let go of something that is making us exhausted, that is just taking so much out of us. And it's like clothes, what we choose to put on, and we can change those clothes. And it takes time to do this. And I know it's a hard thing and it's difficult, but you can do it a little bit at a time. Nobody's saying that snap your fingers and this can be done tomorrow, because we're not trying to change a whole organization. We're just talking about ourselves as BIPOC professionals and the things we can do and what we can control, and we can control ourselves. And I just think there's a lot of strength in knowing there's others around you can reach out to and talk to about this. There's support you can get, through mental resources and different things like that. But I think it's very powerful to know, like clothing, you can put it on and take it off, and it's a little step at a time that you can do. And I'm seeing in the chat, I just want to pull down the chat real quick. I hear you. Feels like you're putting on a mask at Halloween. And that's tiring, because who wants to have that mask on all the time? I mean, we've had to wear a mask during the pandemic, but who wants to wear one 24/7 or whenever 8 hours, 9 hours a day that you have to be in your workplace? It is okay. It is okay to start letting go of that, of the code switching. And I'm your support. I'm your resource. You can reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I will be your support if you need it. If you need just someone to listen and to hear, I don't mind. So here are a few tips. Find your work friends. And I'm going to say a lot about this, because one of my friends who I showed my presentation to before doing this, she said, "Now, Iris, let me tell you what it was like for me when I worked in Silicon Valley as a BIPOC person, and I actually had a work friend who kind of turned on me." So when I put find your work friend, it's find your work friend, but find that work friend that's someone you can talk to, that you can trust, that has shown to you that they can be trustworthy. That's important part of this. Finding that work friend you can talk to and you can feel comfortable with. But it takes time to find that, because there are some people who will smile in your face and, turn away. That song said, sometimes, they want to take your place. Backstabbers. And that's true, and that happens in the workplace and workspace. So really be careful about finding that work friend. But you can find them. It might take time. But they have to show to you that they can be trustworthy, and you have to figure that out for yourself. Slowly but surely share. You can slowly but surely share, bringing that authentic self to your workplace and stopping the code switching. You can slowly but surely doing it. It doesn't have to be all at once, an email to the whole entire company where you lay out everything. I mean, if that's what works for you, fine. I would not, advise you, and that comes from someone being a former HR executive, but slowly but surely start sharing. Slowly but surely start letting go of the code switching and showing up as your authentic self. For me, it was very drastic for a lot of people to see me at my last organization that I worked from, that saw me go from long hair to the short hair. That was, you know, a lot of people were just calling me and emailing me and like, wow, you changed your hair. Because I was on, you know, virtual all staff meetings and I had to lead them with my president and my COO, and my phone was blowing up. But slowly but surely, for me, it was like, that was me. I was like, this is what it's going to be, and they'll see it the next day and it'll be okay. But slowly but surely start to share. You don't have to do it all at once. You can do a little bit at a time, what you want to bring that authentic you, to let go of that code switching. And I'm just looking in the chat. Trustworthy work friends are hard to find, but they are pivotal. My work friend is a true ally, and I'm so grateful for her. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. That is really good, and that's a great example. It means a lot to see that you could find a good work friend as an ally, and that trustworthiness. Exercise energy awareness. That's big, because the code switching zaps so much of your energy. It zaps a lot of your energy. Take it from me. I know I've talked to a lot of people. I've coached a lot of people, you know, executive coaching, career coaching, and just being in my space when I was head of HR and also the chief diversity officer, looking at your energy. Be mindful of your energy. Be mindful of the energy you are putting into something that's negatively affecting you and taking you away from who you are and who you want to be and how you want to show up, because your energy is your own. That's something you can control. And I'm a big believer in, no one's taking my energy. This is my energy. And when I'm feeling like my energy is starting to get negative, I pause and I stop and I'm like, what's causing this? What's causing this thing to happen that is taking my energy? Because I control that. Now, you're going to have work demands. You're going to have things you have to do. That's what you're doing at your job. You're hired to do these things that you're going to be doing. You're an expert at it. You're great at it. You're showing up doing it every day. But be aware of those things that are zapping your energy, that have nothing to do with your job, that have nothing to do with your engagement and interaction with others. There are things, like my husband says, the gnats that are eating away at you. You know, those gnats. Be aware of those gnats that are zapping your energy, and you have to be mindful of them. That's why these 3 tips, the finding that work friend ally, slowly but surely sharing. You don't have to do it all at once, and it has to be a trustworthy person. But look at your energy. Look at where your energy is going. If code switching is zapping your energy, that's something you have to address, because that's taken away from you as an individual and how you show up. If not being able to be authentic is taking your energy, stop, pause. We have to talk to someone. It could be someone outside of the organization. It could be a therapist. It can be through Better Up. It's so many resources out here. You know, a trusted best friend outside of work, a significant other, spouse, whoever that may be. But be aware of your energy, because someone taking your energy and zapping that energy, putting you in a negative space, is going to affect who you are in the long run. It really will affect you. So we're going to go here and talk a little bit about boundaries, and you can see what I'm doing here. The way that I did this, I wanted it to be a flow as we went from certain things in our agenda. And if you have some questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will stop. I'm making sure I'm reading the chat. Amber's here with me as well. She's going to make sure she lets me know if some good questions pop up, because I don't want to feel like this is one-sided. I want to make sure I'm hearing everyone and you're getting something out of this as well. And that's we started off at the beginning. I'm an energy person. I get a lot of energy from others. So let's talk about setting boundaries, because that feeds into everything we're talking about, from being authentic to the code switching to your energy. Setting boundaries so you can flourish. So a little bit about boundaries. They ensure you have a sense of mutual respect and limit the likelihood of people manipulating or taking advantage of you. I want to just let this sit with everybody for a few minutes, because this is, setting boundaries is important, and we've all had to do it in our life. We do it a lot outside of work. It's hard to do it at work a lot of times, but you can do it. You can do it, and you can do it in a way that's mutually beneficial and respectful to whoever you're working with and yourself. So you're not losing yourself, but you're able to set these boundaries, and boundaries are important. We have to be able to have self-care and personal integrity. We have to limit our relationships, and especially relationships that are negative. And when you start ignoring those things, they give you feelings of resentment. You get feelings of resentment when you start ignoring them. So I want you to just think about, how do you set boundaries? How do you set boundaries? And we're going to be, that's my next question. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna pop that in here. Put it in the chat. How do you set boundaries at work? Because I want us all to learn from each other. So when I was in the workplace and being in charge of HR, and I had a team reporting to me and being on senior leadership, and at the time, when I was at one of my organizations, out of 17 people in leadership, I was the only BIPOC person. So let me just say that one more time. I had a team reporting to me, and I was part of senior leadership. And at one point, because when I started, the other person who was in leadership that was a BIPOC person left after a year. So for almost 2 years, it was just me out of 17 people in senior leadership that was a BIPOC person. And I helped to hire another BIPOC person while I was there. Wonderful Latinx man, just wonderful, great person. But how do you set boundaries at work? And I share this with you all because I had to learn how to set some boundaries at work, because I was doing the work of HR and also diversity. And I had to set a lot of boundaries. And one of the reasons I had to set boundaries, and I had to make sure people understood the role that I was in my organization, I had to be very careful about friendships. I was a friendly person, but I could not develop a lot of friendships because I was vice president of human resources. And I also was the chief diversity officer. So I would coach people. I would give a lot of mentoring. I would work with managers and leaders. I was friendly, but I had to be very careful about friendships. So one of the things I had to do in setting boundaries in my roles was being mindful of that. I had to really be mindful of that, because there would be a lot of people who always would want to go to lunch with me. Iris, let me take you to lunch. And I had to turn them down. And it wasn't negative against them. I just had to set those boundaries. And those were boundaries I had to explain to people, and they had to understand why I couldn't just go to lunch with everybody. You know, because I was like, because of where I sit and my role in the organization and what I do, unless this is a work-related situation and you have a filed, you know, a complaint, or you have something that you need to talk about that's work related. Otherwise, I couldn't do it in my role. I just couldn't do it. And it was difficult at times because I'm a very friendly person, but I had to set those boundaries. And I also had to set work boundaries regarding my time and availability. I really had to do that. I really had to do that. And in my role, it was a very demanding role, but I had to set boundaries about my time and my weekends. I had to do that. That was hard because I kept thinking, well, if I don't, something's going to happen. If I don't, you know, allow people to talk to me after 8 p.m. at night and on Sundays, something's going to happen. And at one point I said, no, it isn't. Nothing's going to stop. Nothing's going to end. Iris is going to set some boundaries, and Iris is going to tell people around her, from fellow leaders to everyone else, these are my boundaries, and I have to live by them for my energy, for purposes of my energy. So I'm going to look real quick at some of the things if you dropped in the chat. Nurturing friends outside of the work. This whole concept of quietly quitting is more about self-care, in my opinion. We already feel like we have to deal with the twice as good concept, and that is heavy enough to carry. That is great. Thank you for dropping that in there. That is a great thing to share. The whole quiet quitting from an HR perspective, I've seen it done for years. It's a whole new title now. Back in the day, they called it disengagement. You know, every survey that we would do and put out there, it's different, you know, names for it, and that's just the new name for it, but it's been around. But I think it's something that's prevalent, and we have to be mindful of it and understanding of it. So thanks everybody who's putting things in here in the chat to share with other people who are in the session with us today, because I think it's vital that we learn from each other when we're doing this and setting those boundaries. So here's some tips about setting the boundaries. Be responsible for yourself and your needs. Be consistent with your boundaries. Be consistent. You have to be consistent with your boundaries, because if you're not, people will slide in there and go, well, on Mondays, she's okay with me, you know, calling her at 7:30 at night, but on Tuesdays, I can't. You have to be consistent. You have to set it up and be consistent and stick to it. That's why they're boundaries. And be open to receiving help. And I think that's a big thing especially for all people, but for BIPOC individuals. That's very, very important to have here as part of our conversation. And I could share with you personally, you know, as a caregiver to my 84-year-old father, I had to be open to receiving help. I thought I could do it all, you know, working and mom and wife and everything else I was doing, and traveling and speaking and taking care of my father. And I was like, no, my energy is being zapped. I'm not going to be less than if I ask for help. And I have to get more resources to help manage and juggle all of this. My father's very self-sufficient, but my father is 84. He doesn't drive anymore. So having to take care of a lot of different needs for him, but I had to be open to receiving help, and nothing is wrong with receiving help. Say that one more time. Nothing is wrong with receiving help. Just putting that out there. So a few more tips I just wanted to share with everybody on that. Setting the boundaries and being okay with setting boundaries. Let's talk a little bit about listening to your inner voice and your intuition. And there's a lot of people on both sides of the fence when it comes to your intuition, you know, and I'm just one of those people. Every time I've gone against my intuition, that's when something doesn't go right. It isn't the right decision. And that first thing that comes to mind when I think it and I react to it is usually that best thing for me to do and that best decision for me to do. So listening to your inner voice and your intuition, especially as a BIPOC professional in the workplace. So here are a few things that I found that I think I want to share with everyone. And then we're going to have you all share too, because I want to make sure we're hearing each other. And I think this is important too, about listening to your inner voice and your intuition. Find quiet. Find quiet. You have to find that quiet to listen to that inner voice. And sometimes you have to push pause. For me, I literally have to put my phone in another room so that I can have that quiet. That's the only way I can do it. No computers, TV off. You know, my husband's probably somewhere doing something else, cooking or looking at TV or something. But for me, I have to have that phone and all technology away from me and push pause so I can hear myself. Take a moment to really listen to yourself, to really listen to what you're thinking, what's going on in your mind, what's bothering you, what's nagging you, but what's good that's going on as well. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. Your body is going to tell you what is going on. Do not ignore the signs of what your body's telling you. You know, it's just like when you're hungry, the stomach starts grumbling and growling. Listen to it. It needs to be fed, and your body's the same way. So you have to do it. And some of these things that I'm sharing because as BIPOC professionals, we have to remind ourselves of these things because of how we're showing up at work, the things that we're doing, the things that we're giving, the things that we have to encounter and interact with. I want to just give us some things that's going to help us, some things you can take away with you today. Put in your slow cooker. And what that means is if you work with one of those crock pots, you put stuff in it and you leave it and then you come back and it's all done. And some things you have to do that with. Some things you have to just put it in the slow cooker, let it simmer, let it just marinate, then you come back to it and be okay with that. Be okay with those, especially if they're big decisions. Be okay with that. Decide what you want to do. It's up to you. You get a choice in this. You get a choice in things. You get a choice in how you react to how people approach you, interact with you, and deal with you, and you dealing with them when you're in the workplace. You have a choice. You can decide what you want to do. Weigh the decision before acting on it. You know, it's just like when someone tells you to go buy a car when you're buying a car. You know, I would love to buy that Mercedes 350. However, I cannot, you know, and I'm not making light of it, but I have to do what's within reason for my budget. You know, me and my husband would look at me like something was wrong if I rolled back up in here with something we can't afford. So weigh that decision before acting on it. Take a step. It doesn't have to be a big giant step, but take a step when you're listening to your inner voice and get help and be okay with getting help. And getting help means resources again. I can't stress that enough. Be okay with getting help, be it resources from family or friends, or from an EAP at your organization, or from therapy, or from mental wellness sites or apps. Be okay with that. I want you to just drop down into the chat some of the things you do when you want to listen to your inner voice. How do you stop to make sure you're listening to your inner voice? and you're hearing yourself. So if you want to drop that in the chat, I'd love to hear what you all have to say, some things you want to share. Oh, I like that, Regina. I have boundaries around what battles I'm willing to fight at a given time. For me, it's about energy and sanity preservation. That is strong and powerful and wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love that. Be quiet with the candle lit. That is, I love that. I love that. Oh, take a walk. Deep breathing and calming music alone. That's great. Thank you, Denise. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Smudge my house, then breathe. I like that. I like that. Thank you. Thank you. Journaling really helps. Thanks, Felicia. That really helps. I'm a big journaler. I love to journal. It really helps center me and focus me. And it takes me to a place where if I'm thinking about a whole bunch of stuff, I can just put it down. And then I can either come back to it or add to it at the end of the day or whenever I want to do that. So thank you all for sharing that. So I'm going to do another quick poll. I'm going to do another quick poll. Have you ever ignored your inner voice? I want you to talk to me about that. Yes, no, maybe, sometimes. Just think about that. Think about that. Have you ever ignored your inner voice? And it's not like it's a bad thing. You know, we do it. We're human. Yes, I ended up getting sick. I hear you, Sharon. That happens. That happens. Yeah, we all do. Sometimes we do. We ignore it. We ignore it because we're thinking about a lot of things. We're rushing. We're doing too many things. And Regina, it typically doesn't end well when you ignore that inner voice. It doesn't. Thank you all for sharing. Thanks for sharing in the chat. So I want to talk a little bit about, because I don't want anybody to think if you're going through something, you have to stay in it. Being okay with moving on. And as a BIPOC professional, I had to learn this at one point in my career about being okay with moving on, because some things are your battle to fight and some are not. And you have to decide what that is for you. So I'm gonna share a few things with you about, you know, this moving on, because it's not easy. It's not easy as a BIPOC professional, not easy as a human being out here nowadays, but specifically as a BIPOC professional, it's not easy to do things, and certain things, especially at work. You might have trusted the wrong person at work and they undermined you. Let me know in the chat if some of these things sound familiar. You made a mistake and it was blown out of proportion by your manager, but may not have happened to another non-BIPOC person on the team. You may have been passed up for a promotion that you know you earned. And I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. Give me some food for thought. All of us have been there, or either you've known somebody that's been there as a BIPOC professional. I know so many people that have been through these things. The microaggressions have just been too much to bear. There's no support mechanisms in place at your work. I'm just gonna let that sit. I'm gonna let that sit with everybody. And you can put things in the chat, but I'm gonna let that sit. These are the things I know I've seen, I've witnessed, me personally, but also with people I know, people I've coached, people I've worked with, friends, family. This has happened. This is real. So at the beginning, I'm not a Pollyanna, I'm a realist, but I'm also a positive focused person. I come from a place of authenticity and positivity, and I definitely believe it's okay with moving on. You have to be okay though with moving on. You have to be okay with it. You have to decide whether to stay or go. It says stay, but it's to stay or go. You have to decide whether to do that. So thank you for giving me a little grace. Had a little error there in the slide. One of the things I learned early on as I was moving up in my career, especially different levels, you might be able to influence others. Senior leaders, be a catalyst for change so that other BIPOC individuals can prosper at your work. Think about who you are and where you sit. You might be an influence to others. You might be able to help influence others. And especially if you have a space where you can work with other people in senior leadership, you can be a catalyst for change. Organizations now have DEI councils, they have chief diversity officers, they have so many resources. People are more engaged with this conversation now than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. You might be that person who could be that influence for change. But if you're not, it's okay. Everybody doesn't have to be the person that's leading the effort. You can be a silent person or a behind the scenes person talking to other people, being that influence for change when you see something that's not right and you bring it to someone's attention. That wasn't right. That wasn't the right thing to do. You can be that person. So you have to be okay if you want to stay or if you want to go. And I put that in there because sometimes people decide, you know what, I'm not leaving. I do want to stay and be that catalyst for change. I want to be a part of that movement. I want to be a part of that person who can be on an ERG and an affinity group. I want to be on the DEIB council or the committee. You can be one of the people on this, doing this work, being a part of this work to help those things change at your organization, especially for BIPOC, other BIPOC people. We're not in this by ourselves. So if you want to be there, you can, it's okay. You can stay, but don't hurt yourself in the process. Don't hurt yourself in the process. That's why I'm saying it's okay if you want to move on. It is okay if you want to move on. So I'm gonna go to another quick question. If you have stayed at your work or company, what have you done to impact change for BIPOC individuals? So I'm gonna turn this around and make this very personal as we're going through this. And I'm aware of my time, so I'm not gonna rush. But if you wanna put some stuff in the chat regarding this particular question, if you stayed at your work in your company, because you are now a champion if you've done that. And I've had to be champions at my organization before I even became a chief diversity officer. I had to become a champion at certain organizations that I worked at, and the things that I had to do to help impact change for BIPOC individuals. So if you want to share in the chat, you can. What are some of the things you've done if you stayed at your organization to impact change? I'll share that I had to confront my president at one of my organizations. And that was the hardest thing for me to do. And it was before I became a chief diversity officer. And it was the hardest thing I ever did. And I did it because I couldn't sit back anymore and be quiet. And I had to talk with him, and I had to have a real conversation with him about what this looks like, and that it wasn't right, and it was not the right thing to do. And if we say we're this organization that's out here in the media saying all these great things, but we're not doing internally, we're lying. And it was the hardest conversation I ever had to have. And he heard me, and we were able to make some change at the organization. And it took time, but I had to be that champion because I just couldn't live with it anymore. I couldn't live with me anymore if I didn't speak up. And that made me really decide then that, you know, I do want to get into the diversity space and eventually move to be a chief diversity officer, because I wanted to do this more. I wanted to be in an organization where I could do this work and make it part of the culture of the organization. But it took a lot of courage to step out of my space and to talk to the president about something that I saw and action needed to be taken. And it's hard. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So your mental health means everything, period. Your mental health means everything. And I kept putting that period there because I just thought of Medea, and she always says that. And I say, that's it, period. Your mental health means everything. So when I talk about sometimes you can stay, or sometimes you have to be okay with leaving that space and going somewhere else that's going to give you what you need at your organization and give you the culture that you want, sometimes you might have to do that, because at the end of the day, as BIPOC professionals, our mental health means everything. Our mental health means everything. And I just wanted to drop a little nugget in here about, you know, the 14th annual observance of BIPOC Mental Health Month was July of this year. You know, being aware and stopping and being okay with our mental health and our mental well-being. So as humans, we need each other. We need each other as human beings. We need each other. As BIPOC folks, we need allies. We need our communities. We need time to get to honor ourselves and our needs. And this is very powerful to me. It's important we stay focused on those hardships and the things that are going on that we have to change, but we have to take time to pay special attention to ourselves. It's like they say when you're in the airplane, when that oxygen mask drops, you have to put it on you first before you can help someone else. So it's very important that we do that. It's very, very important that we do that. So I just want to look on the chat real quick and making sure. Laura shared, I presented to all the leaders our company why advancing BIPOC individuals is important and show our BIPOC representation at leadership level outlined in our areas of opportunity. I want everybody to give Laura a big shout out, give her some big kudos on the chat, because Laura, that takes courage. I know, I've been in that space, I've been in that place. It's not for everyone. Everybody can't do it. Don't feel as though you have to be the only one that does it, or you're the only one that will do it. It will be other people who will do it. It's not easy. So big shout out to you. Big kudos, Laura. I know how hard that is to do. I have done it. It is difficult. And let me tell you, at the end of the day, and I'm an extrovert all day, every day, I am an extrovert. The day that I did that at my old organization long ago, before I became a chief diversity officer, that evening, my husband, I cried all evening because I thought I was going to get fired. I did. And I told him what I did, and he supported me, but I was so worn out because it took everything in me to talk to my president about this. Because I did. I was like, at the end of the day, I have to be okay with me, and I have to be honest with myself. And I'm never going to undermine myself when I see something wrong going on and something wrong happening, because it's not true to me. It doesn't, I can't be my true authentic self. But it took a lot out of me, and I cried, and my husband supported me. And at the very beginning, when I shared about who I am and what I do, I did do a little, retail therapy after that. But me and my president of my organization had a great relationship, because he saw me as being someone who was not going to be a yes person. I was going to speak up. I was going to do the right thing, even when nobody else was standing behind me. And I was by myself going forward to move this thing forward when I saw this thing that had been done, this microaggression. So kudos, Laura, big kudos to you. So we're going to wrap up. I got a few more slides, and we're going to talk about finding your happiness. And I'm going to share with you all in the next couple of slides some really great people I know, and I'm a big believer in speaking people's names who are not in the room. That is just so powerful. And I think that's very vital and very important, that you speak people's names even when they're not in the room. And all of these people I know, and they're good friends of mine. I'm not promoting business. I'm not trying to be a salesperson. I know these people. I know what they've done. I know where they've been, where they've worked, and where they are now, and what they're doing. And I love sharing resources with people, because I think it's vital and important to know that you have resources like LinkedIn. I shared in the beginning, reached out to me. I will connect with you. I don't mind supporting. I'll be there if you need a listening ear to chat with. I don't mind. It's important to get allies. It's important to have support. It's important to be able to show up as you and not feeling though you can't show up as you. You need to make sure you can talk to somebody to help you through that. So I'm gonna show a few people in my circle. The first one's Dr. Kiki Ramsey. Dr. Ramsey has a story that you would not believe. Check her out. She's on LinkedIn. And by the way, the only thing I'm active on is LinkedIn. My years of HR, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on any of those other social media sites, just LinkedIn. But Dr. Kiki Ramsey is a really, really great friend of mine, and she's a positive psychologist. Her and her firm and her company, I used them when I was at the station, when I worked at the TV station, and her firm did diversity coaching for our leadership team. I engaged her, talked to my COO and my president, and they were like, bring it. I was like, it's brought. And what she did at our organization was powerful. Check her out. She's on all the media platforms, but connect with her on LinkedIn. She has a new program she just rolled out called Happy Women Lead. She has a lot of different programs that she has. She's an adjunct professor. She wrote a book, but her life story, and she shares her story all the time, of growing up the child of a crack addicted mom, and they were homeless. She shares that story of how she went through what she went through to be where she is now. Positive person. Make sure you reach out to her. She's great. Kimberly Cummings Brown. Kimberly is all that, then some. And you'll see if you check Kimberly out on LinkedIn. She worked for a very large, wonderful organization, and she left it. She left it because she was like, I want to be somewhere doing something that's going to uplift BIPOC people and other people and help them get to where they want to be. About the book, Next Move, Best Move. Oh my goodness, get it. It's wonderful. It's great. Her organization, Manifest Yourself. She talks the truth. She is a truth speaker. Check her out. She does a podcast. It's really, really great. I just love being in her presence, in her space. And me and her have been at conferences together before, and she's just a wonderful individual. Check her out. And I just want you to see some people and the stories they have. because there's always somebody who's been through what you've been through, so you're not alone in this space that we're in as BIPOC professionals, being able to show up as our authentic selves. And the one thing you'll notice on all these people I'm sharing with you right now, their smiles. Check out their smiles. So Tracy Daniels, another good friend of mine who did work for me, a leadership development person who has 25 years HR experience, started her own consulting firm. She did some work for me as well. Her book, Centering Diversity, just came out this year. She surprised me and all of our friends because we didn't know she was writing a book, and she did. And she got it published, and she's getting ready to go on tour soon. Fabulous person. She's worked with all types of organizations on just uplifting people. Check her out on LinkedIn. And my last person I want to share with you, Brianna Franklin. She's under 30 and she started this organization, the Prosperity Project. Check it out. She was here recently. I think she's still here. She was in Atlanta, came up to visit me and her, had a brunch this past weekend. Whenever I'm around her, I'm just uplifted. She tells me I uplift her, so we did it to each other. She's very passionate about empowering Black girls and women. So check them out. They're on LinkedIn and all the other social medias. Finding your happiness, being your authentic self is fine at work, at home, in life. There is no one else like you. No one else like you. Code switching is exhausting. We talked about that. Let go of that mindset. Liberate yourself each and every day. Speak your truth. Seek others to provide coaching and mentorship. That's going to help you with being your authentic self and helping to let go of this code switching. Set boundaries. It's okay to say no. I know I have a t-shirt that says it. It's okay to say no. We have to take care of our energy. Listen to your inner voice. If it feels like a microaggression, it is. If you have the power to speak up, act, seek support. If it feels like one, it is one. Don't let it go by. Don't hold it in. Don't own it. Let it go. Speak to it. Take care of it. Be okay if you have to move on. Your dream of entrepreneurship, a new career path, it's okay. Do it. I did it. I did it. I left a career in HR, and I'm now an executive recruiter for a great firm that centers diversity on our recruiting, and I love it. I love being a part of this. Your mental health is your #1 priority. No matter what you've been through, the road that has been laid with speed bumps, own your happiness. It's okay. Own your happiness. So I want to thank everybody, and I think I'm right on time, Amber. Am I right on time? We're going to share this presentation with everyone. I want to thank you for being here with me today. I hope some of my energy has gone to you. You can be your authentic self. You can show up. You can reach out. You can get support. This lady in red was done by one of the women in this organization. I'm chair of the board, called New Endeavors by Women, and they help women and children in DC get out of homelessness into housing and jobs and education. And one day during July, I was there at the center and celebrating my birthday, as a matter of fact. And one of the young ladies in the program asked me what was my favorite color, and I said red. So she painted me a picture.